here. Twitter is now here by the looks. Just waiting for YouTube. Always last. Come on, YouTube. And we are now live on YouTube. That's good. All right, let's get stuck into it. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players that are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Hef and I'm joined by Dossie. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. And Kaes is finally back after
He's back.
2 weeks off playing golf in Queensland. Tough life for
Someone's
some.
got to do it.
Yeah.
Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
For work?
It was actually
not a
for
job.
work.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually for work, but yeah, some of how do we get this job? By the way, anyway, can I have this job?
Work really hard.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
You know, be really kind to a lot of boomers.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it works.
No, that's the thing that I definitely wouldn't be able to do that. So no, absolutely no way. Sorry to the boomer listeners out there. You're right. I was just kidding. And anyway,
It's only Stato, isn't it?
Yeah, Stato's the only one who really care about that kind of statement, and he probably accepts it anyway. So, judging by the harsh criticism he gives himself and the audio issues on the pod we've had in the last few weeks, I think it's well deserved. But anyway, it's Keeper League finals time at the moment. So I guess we'll run through how we're going. There was a Twitter question asking me how my team was going, and I did not want to tempt fantasy gods by posting on Twitter, which is something you did, which I got a
more than happy to.
funny story about that one in a second. But the home league, Kaes, you're in the qualifying final to get into the grand final this week. You're playing the reigning premier this week, even though you finished top. How would you describe your form coming into finals?
Putrid.
Kaes?
I think of the top six, I actually did some stats. I think I was like the second to worst scoring team in the last month of the top six in our league. And I think I would have just beaten Pugs, who had a stinking score. I think I would have scored like 15, 30 or something the weekend, which would have been smacked by most teams.
Pugs
I'm limping.
Pugs is the guy, he listens to this show religiously, but g'day Pugs out there. I beat him on the weekend. So he was finished. I think he finished below me in the end, but he's usually like top three, like around that kind of.
He was like equal top with me. He was equal top for me with age, and then teams just falling off a cliff.
Yeah,
with
a lot of
injuries
injuries as well.
so many
So that kind of helped him. So I was lucky to get over the line with a few injuries there, and Andrew Brayshaw Friday night score as well. That
helps big time.
Really helps captaincy there. But yeah, so if you lose this week and I win, which is a very big ask, I've got a good outfit coming up against this week. But if we could play each other in a prelim next week,
big chance.
I don't know if I'm going to win two to get to the grand final, but there's a chance. And if you win, then you
I
might
just see
get
that little bit of hope in your eye, Hef. You know,
there's hope. There definitely is hope.
During the season, it was you can't win if you finish outside the top two, and now you just the wheels are going. This little train who can.
Well, there's only one team in our 9-year history that has won at the grand final from outside of top two. And it is this guy. So, but yeah, like I said, tough outfit.
Confidence is growing, Dossie.
Tough outfit this week. Growing. We'll see how we go. But yeah, Podcasters League finals. Now, funny story about this one, Kaes. So, you copped a bit of a knock in our group chat for victory lapping your seasons. You've finished top of the home league, finished top of the Podcasters League. Yeah. Well, little did you know that the Podcasters League wasn't finished when you posted that.
Actually,
and you lost your matchup on the weekend and finished second. So.
But it gives me an easier, or doesn't really give me. It maybe sets us up for a real Keeper League style.
What would have happened? It would have been Hef versus Dos this weekend, and the winner plays Kaes to get into the grand final. Yeah. But now there's actually a chance that it can be an all Keeper League podcast grand final. So
good.
That's actually probably a good thing that there's a chance that would happen. It's definitely not going to be my team. So.
I generally didn't realise that most leagues don't start finals and we start finals. So many start this week. And it's because just was kind of like...
our final setup in our home leagues, a bit different. So we can have 6 people in there. But yeah, it's... I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah, but anyway. So yeah, Dos versus Hef this week in a final. I do get Grundy back, maybe Rich back and a few back. But I don't know, Dossie's team's on fire at the moment. So definitely outscored mine last week.
He's actually got a good squad.
Yeah, and a good young squad too. So it could be good for a few years.
Not just a pretty face.
It's amazing that you can throw
pretty-
away number 1 draft picks each year, like picking Jamari Ugle-Hagen and still put up a good team.
And his team's named after a guy who's not best 22 as well.
That's to be expected with Dossie though. Anyway, if you're watching on the stream, you notice that Dossie is wearing the marmalade hat from last week.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
What is this?
These are hats were given to us by Checkers. He was a guy you probably wouldn't have listened to the last 2 weeks and had no idea what was actually going on the show while you were away.
No.
But Checkers filled in for you, and he left us these hats. Now, very exclusive company that owners these hats. So I think it was Kane Corns, Jono Brown, Campbell Brown. That's about it.
They're pretty lucky guys to have the same hat as Dossie.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But,
Big time.
Dossie. Anyway, but no, he did leave one for you. There you go,
wow.
guys. There's a hat for you, the marmalade hat. So
Thanks, Checkers.
So you can't buy these at all. So you've got to be very lucky to be given one. So
Me and Checkers have never been in the same room at the same time ever. So like, maybe Checkers is just a figment of your imagination.
You never met Checkers?
No, I've never met Checkers.
Yeah.
Whenever he's on the pod, I'm not on the pod.
That's why he's on the pod.
Maybe ratings go up.
I'll have a week off next week just so you can
Go for it, Dossie.
All right, we'll get stuck into the round rewind in a second, but first we'll thank our sponsors, Manscaped. So Father's Day is around the corner. Well, I think it is. That's just the kind of script that they send me. I'm a father. I don't actually know when Father's Day is. Kaes, it's your first Father's Day. Yeah. Do you know what it is?
September usually, isn't it?
Okay, so we got another month or so. I got no idea where it is, but
September.
yeah, but that's coming up. So I guess the perfect gift, I reckon, would be the Performance Package 4.0. It actually is a sweet gift. If you can't think of anything, and it's just like you can jump on the website, chuck the Keeper20 code on, get 20% off, free shipping, and just get your old man a bit of a treat for Father's Day. Why are you laughing? Dustin?
I just can't imagine
getting your dad one.
I couldn't do it.
You can use it as a face trimmer. You don't have to use it to trim your balls.
Yeah, maybe the nossie.
And you got the nose trimmer.
Just
and all the deodorants that go with it. And stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, no.
Well, the jocks, man.
Yeah, the jocks are good too.
I get everything.
Dads love jocks, man.
I get everything bar the lawnmower. Okay,
yeah, that's fine.
Just a bit across the line for Dossie.
But anyways, get 20% off. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Keeper20 at manscaped.com. Trust me, Dad will thank you for that. All right, let's get stuck into the round rewind. Oh, Dossie just giggling in the corner.
What's going on?
I'm adult today, mate.
That's all right. Just slamming the sponsors. Nah, not really. Everything but the lawnmower. You imagine the old man in the
That's why I just get laughing at. I was like, here you go, Dad.
Kimbo with the lawnmower 4.0. All right. Oh, streaming numbers are down tonight. 3 on YouTube, 6 on Facebook. Doesn't tell us how many there are on Twitter though. There's usually a few there.
Yeah.
All right, let's get quality content. That's the thing.
It's a good start.
All right. Who's up first, Dossie? Thank goodness.
Yeah, but it's like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah,
Sick.
that's all right. I just want to drink. That's all. All right, round rewind. First game of the weekend was Fremantle versus North Melbourne. Dossie, you had this one. Was there much to talk about in this one?
Not at all, from a Keeper League perspective anyway. Obviously, it was a interesting game of footy. The fact that the Demons absolutely smacked the Dockers. We probably thought the Dockers were one of the teams that are top 4 coming into this game, I reckon, and then got absolutely smashed. So it's kind of a topsy-turvy matchup between two teams that have been kind of the other ends of form spectrum, and then Melbourne came in and threw the hammer down. But just a couple of interesting things of note that they're too good for the podcast, but I want to talk about them anyway. Gus Brayshaw, he's got to be the waiver wire pickup of the year, I suggest, just because you got him from basically round 1. Everyone saw the role change half back. We picked him up. He's been outstanding, averaging 98 points for the year. Interesting in this one, though, was his centre bounce attendance numbers were back up. He attended 12 centre bounces, and as a midfielder, Gus Brayshaw back in the day, inside midfielder, was one of my favourite prospects. I used to think he was going to be the next Tom Rockcliffe when he was in there. I saw him at a preseason game, drop like a 160. He went on that tear in the back half of the season. I think it was way back in
that year too.
Yeah, like 2018 maybe it was, 2017.
Yeah.
And he was averaging like 120 in the back half of that year. So just exciting times if you're a keeper owner right now.
Wrote about him in the CBA article this week, so check that one out. But when he went to that first CBA, that makes sense. That first centre-bound sentence, yes, that does make sense. I was just gobsmacked. Like I just did not expect it. And go straight to his brother as well. So that was kind of interesting to see as well.
And then the fact they got such a huge win, like. Honestly, Gus Brayshaw, he's just one of my favourite players, the way he plays. Like, he's such a smart footballer. I reckon in terms of footy IQ, who's better than him in the game? I'd argue he's up there in the top 10 for football IQ out there.
I don't know. For someone who has zero football IQ, I don't even know what football IQ is.
Come on,
is that just where you
he knows the game. He's always in the right spot.
Dylan Moore.
He's played elite level football at halfback, wing, inside mid. The dude can do everything, and he just knows exactly what he's doing out there all the time.
Enough about 2G, 4P players. Who else?
All right, another couple of 2G for P players. Let's talk about Liam Henry, who he's only scored a 64, but his role lately has been more on the wing. So just keep an eye on him going to the future. I think he averaged in the 70s in the waffle off a couple of games playing in that wing role. So previously a small forward. He's just one to watch for the future. But yeah, 66 I think he scored. So I mean, tough matchup, I'd say, for wingmen would be Melbourne. I think they tend to limit wingmen fairly well, but just a guy to look out for. And then the other one I just noted, and probably I wrote this down actually before the news today, coming out, that David Mundy's hanging up the boots. How about that? Pour one out for the Mundinator.
Like, just watching
him,
finish. Forgot that he was 37.
Yeah.
Like, just watching him here, he doesn't play. Like, he plays better than a 37-year-old.
But how many blokes come out, announce their retirement after 35 touches?
Yeah, true.
That's what Mundy's come out, dropped a ton. So, in only 69, very nice percentage time on ground. So, what a great career for David Mundy. And that probably clears up. I mentioned Sarong's been playing a lot on the wing lately. I think he only had 2 centre bounce attendances in this game. But that's, there's the pathway for him to get back inside. But interesting for owners of
Aish
Sarong.
was on the inside a lot this week, wasn't he?
No, he was.
Yeah, so that's weird that I don't know.
I think he was kind of just manning up on one of the players. I think it was Oliver.
Oliver, that's what it was too. Yeah, and he had a quiet game, so that's generally effective. Anyways.
So that was it pretty much. Yeah, the Keeper League players, we've already picked them all up, so... At the moment, let's look for next year.
Exactly. All right, we'll get on to Collingwood versus Port Adelaide. A lot of non-2G, 4P players in this game. So get stuck into a few. So Josh Dacos, 104 points. He actually had -3 before the game even began. So he gave away a free kick before the first bounce. And then let Boak have a set shot in front of goal. Got to be a handy contributor on the wing, though, going forward. Won't be a massive scorer, but definitely keepable each year. He'll be, I reckon, a 90 to 100 kind of in that range, but, one that's definitely in your kind of M3, M4 kind of range each year. And, I reckon he's just kind of shown that he can kind of score after a few doubts after last season, really. So not much more to add there. I'm B2Ping... kind of B2Ping Darcy Cameron. He did have 96 points on the weekend.
Yeah, whoa.
Well, Grundy's going to come back in this weekend, so we kind of have to discuss it. But he was back as the number 1 ruck this week after being taken over by Mason Cox. So my thinking, it might have been a dress rehearsal for both of them to see who kind of stays in the side when Grundy comes back in. I don't really know. It was kind of weird to just see it completely swap again this week. But look, he was playing predominantly at Finlayson, and Finlayson just didn't go with him. So he was just allowed to take marks around the ground, basically uncontested. Like there was like one passage where like Finlayson was just 10 metres behind and did nothing like to stop him.
Just my theory on this, the reason Cox played last week and Cameron played this week, I think they're just going matchup based. So last week, wasn't it Sean Darcy last week?
Yeah, it was.
And you've got an absolute dominant tap ruckman, so you're going to go the bigger guy. And then this week you've got Finlayson, who's much better around the ground. You go Cameron.
Yeah, maybe.
That's kind of where I think they've gone.
Cameron's not like a great ruckman. Like he's a okay ruckman, but like
tap
like everyone's going, they should just move on Grundy because Cameron's so good. He's not like that good. So like, I don't know.
I agree with you
buying into this whole move on Grundy thing.
Yeah, Grundy's going to come back in this week and he'll take over again.
Did you guys see the stats in the VFL though? It seemed like Aiden Begg was playing quite a lot in the ruck.
Yeah,
like
it was. I think Grundy only played like basically at half, didn't he?
So why is he going to come straight back in then?
Because they just didn't want to get him injured in that game. And they do that. That happens quite often where like a gun will just like have a bit of run. They go, yep, good enough, get him off. Like that happens quite a bit in the VFL.
Yeah,
he's been out for a long time, is all I'm saying.
True.
And they're in ripping form still. Haven't they won 9 in a row?
They got Melbourne this week.
They got to play Melbourne this week, and I'm assuming where they're sitting on the ladder.
Yeah,
third.
they're
They want to
third.
hold probably top 4
I'm
spot.
super interested. I'm a Darcy Cameron owner, and
A truther. Is what you tend to
well,
say.
I would have liked to have offloaded him earlier, but it's like I don't think anyone was buying that. They all knew.
Yeah.
Everyone knew what was going to come.
Exactly. Moving on, Braden Maynard, 72 points. Good return after being subbed out with a shoulder injury the week before. And Port, a very hard team to score against for those running defenders as well. So good score from Braden Maynard. He's getting so close to 2G4P again. But keeps putting up 70s and then going low with injuries. Anyway, Josh Carmichael, 46 points, came on in the third quarter and just absolutely racked him up.
Jeez.
He had 46 points in less than a half. No CBAs either. I think he was up forward most of it because he kicked the goal to steady the ship real late in the game as well. Taylor Adams got injured, so he could be back in the side starting next week, but that disposal is still pretty putrid, so it depends where they go with that one. They might just like the fresh legs and the running injection they get from him. But we'll wait and see what happens this week. Moving on to Port players. Kane Farrell, 97 points on the wing. Look, he's going to be worth picking up next season, even as a mid only, I feel. I feel like I've said the same thing for the last 3 weeks, so I won't go too long on this one. But Amon's leaving, had 20 touches, 15 kicks, 5 handballs, 6 marks, 6 tackles. That's a fair day out for a winger there. It was interesting to note there as well that the best players for Port Adelaide, at least from a fantasy perspective, and probably in real football too, was Rosie, Butters, Dersma, and Farrell. So I guess there's some positives there for Port Adelaide supporters. If they're the go-tos for next season, then there might be some good fantasy points out of that crew there. Jeremy Finlayson, 92 points. Good fantasy return, but just again so convincingly beaten in the ruck, and Port just continually are losing games. We're challenging good sides, but are we there to challenge or are we there to win? I think if Teakle is fit this week, I reckon they bring him back in.
He played on the weekend.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the only thing Hayes probably put in a better performance, but I think Teakle is the one they like though.
Hayes does that at their
I know that is his level.
Yeah.
Watching the news, they said it was a bit of a duel between those two to play this week.
Yeah.
And I think now that I reckon they were just trying to try Finlayson as long as they could while finals was still like a opportunity. And now that it's dead, it really doesn't matter. They're probably just going to give Teakle and or Hayes a run.
I think Teakle is the preferred, but like I said,
you know how well ranked. I know we don't think he's been amazing, but Finlayson's been an amazing ruckman in terms of the way they rank things. Even
internally,
and even Supercoach, he was the best player on the weekend.
But again, Port's metrics as well, what they perceive as success, is very different to what the average supporter actually perceives as success as well. Which I don't know, it's annoying for us supporters, but apparently getting within 5 points of teams is a win for them. But anyway. Anyway, I think Teakle is going to come in.
You're saying you supported a certain bit of signage that went up last week.
Created, assembled,
absolutely supported. Actually, we may or may not have been looking into flying a plane over Adelaide Oval with a sign attached to the back of it, seeing the costs for that one. They may have gone up in a group chat this week, and one of the guys actually did an estimate on how much it would cost us. So if anyone wants to chip in $270, all we need is 10 people and we could get it happening. So a big Sack Hinkley banner flying over Adelaide Oval at the showdown. Anyway, hit me up if you want to donate to that cause.
Poor Ken.
Anyway, move on. Jace Burgoyne, 81 points. Look, I might be a bit biased here being a Port supporter, but I think we're seeing the beginnings of a star halfback flanker here right in the making. So does some really nice things under pressure, although his disposal, we'll admit, can be a bit wobbly at times. Just does a few things that he just how did an 18-year-old, weave out of that kind of traffic or do a little spin and get that on the boot type thing. And does some defensive things really well. He tackles really well for a skinny fella and, can kind of shut down a man when he needs to and kind of, there was a 2-on-1 situation where he kind of came out on top as well. It showed some really good awareness in those kind of situations too when in a bit of traffic. So Jace Burgoyne, especially kind of the first kind of good score we've seen, and he teased last week with 50 points and a half.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the goods long term, considering how young he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he regresses, in the second year and that sort of stuff. But I think long term he's going to be one. And being Peter Burgoyne's son wasn't a bad player. Xavier Dersma, 71 points. Started terribly in terms of disposal. I think his first kick missed his boot or just clipped it. Like, just looked rattled. Like, I was thinking, like, this guy just is shot with confidence. He's been dropped to the twos multiple times. He just cannot hack it at a senior level. But then, warmed up as the game went on. I think the first 3 or 4 touches were a bit dodgy, but then he started to hit target and stuff like that. And he actually had 56 points at half time. And he was playing on that wing as well. So, yeah, I think a theory that Carl Amon played less wing time because Dozma was kind of in. I'm not sure if that's the real case, but you were pretty pissed off with Amon's time on ground.
Yeah, 68% Tog. So I brought him in as a point of difference in the classic system, and
it's his fault for leaving.
26 touches, 6 marks, and he only played 68%, and they
the
lose by a goal.
And that's the other thing. They might know that Dersma is going to be around next year, where Amon's not, so they might be playing in the position he's probably going to be playing going forward. So
he might be playing Sandful.
Yeah,
I think, to be honest, I'm looking at some of the time on grounds, and there's some fairly big skews. I'm wondering whether it just got stuck on one side for ages or something, because there's some players where you're like, why did Darcy Byrne-Jones play 70%? And there's just a bunch, I reckon, that got stuck on the bench. That's just a gut feel.
Yeah,
Could I just ask you
watching?
guys a
I didn't
question?
notice that, but yeah.
Could I ask you a question on this? I don't know if you've got any more players left.
No, that's done.
Okay, where does Connor Rosie sit in your midfield only ranks next year? And where would you be picking him in a startup keeper? Is he? He's gone through the roof now, right? Like, he's way up there.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick him. What's his ceiling going to be next year? Like, do you think he's 110 average? I don't think he's that high. He's about
not
100.
next. No, 105. But he's only, this is his first. Next year will be his first full-time midfield role.
Yeah, long term, he could go high. Like I said, when I do a startup keeper league, I go the best player available.
I think he's averaging 107 in his last 6 or something.
Yeah, I go the best player available. So, and for me, if I'm early on, I'm taking a top 5 mid first, and then I'm going defender forward, and then I'll probably go 4th, 5th. I probably wouldn't go any earlier than 5th round type thing, but that's just me. That's the way I roll. I'd like to see them do it again in another season before, you can. It's so much easier to back in like a Zach Merritt or something like that who's done it year in year out first before you go to a player like that. That's all.
There is complete upside because Boak's got 1 year left probably.
Yeah, there's heaps of upside,
and it's Wines.
Just interesting as well. The first week that they dropped Willem Drew this week, and he has 35 touches with crap loads of just. Everything was coming his way, but he's covering up.
I did back-to-back games, although I didn't see all of this game. I watched probably about half of it. But Sydney versus GWS Giants. There was 12 scores over 80 for Sydney. So, massive in terms of fantasy scoring. And on the flip side, not a lot from GWS as well. So, I guess on the points for and against side of things, just try to avoid players against Sydney.
Oh, they're a tombstone all around, aren't they?
It's so hard to score against.
You can't score.
Come up against North Melbourne this week. So, I've only got 2 North Melbourne players on my side. I'm thinking of dropping them both. Jed Anderson, I don't know where he goes in this game, but it's not going to be pretty.
I wouldn't field him at all.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Anyway, I think I have to. I don't know what to replace him with. But on to the Sydney side of things, James Rowbottom had 129 points, and he's found his place on the inside in the midfield. So, played a variety of roles over the past few years, and inside is just where he belongs. So, I said last week I can only see him as a 90 average guy, and you were like, no, you can see him as 100. I can see him as 100 now as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, if Parker moves on in the next 2-3 years, how old's Parker now? He's 30 plus, isn't he?
29.
Oh, maybe not then. But I guess either way, he's finding the footy now with that.
The only reason I've said it is the guy's 21. He's just been around for a bit.
James Brown's 21.
He's 21.
I would have said 23.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I mean. He's already hitting these ceiling scores.
It's 4th year this year.
Yeah, he came really young into the system.
Hot. Yeah,
so it's kind of and he's always done it in low time on ground. He's always showed a ceiling. It's just the matter of getting that fitness base.
How many flags are Sydney going to win in the next 5 years?
Hopefully none, because one of my good mates goes for him.
Oh, okay. Well, they got a good young side.
I was going to say, because the Wiggles going to win, and then no, they're not, bro. Yeah.
Interesting to see how many academy players they've got on that side, and Steve Fizz having a big rant about that on the draft order today, which is quite funny. But
managed to loop Goulden on this week. It was great.
Loop him. I started him actually.
Yeah,
so
did the old loop.
Anyway, Sam Reid had 108 points, kicked 3 goals. Also continue with that ruck forward role. Hickey did go down the rooms in quarter 2, so that kind of gave him a bit of a bump in the middle. But kicked a few goals. So when he does that, gets 10 hit-outs or so, kicks 3 goals. Against a lesser opposition, he's going to score pretty well. Say that every week, I feel like that. It's almost like he's 2G, 4P, but he's kind of not quite there. Tom Patley is one we have 2G, 4P'd, but he's just a beast in the midfield. He had 91 points. He just looks so good in there.
I just laughed when the article came out. Whoever on the AFL website did the heading for that one, it was like, under the radar, like stealth move going into the midfield. It's
no one
like
thought
any
it was-
fantasy coach, well, this show in particular, would have told you that about 6 weeks ago.
Absolutely.
Not so stealth.
Not stealth at all. Dylan Stevens, 74 points, backed up his tonne last week, went missing for a patch, but then just did some awesome stuff later on in the game, just busting through traffic and, powering away from opposition. Hit some really difficult kicks as well. Like my knock on was his kicking last week, and there still are a few kind of just hoofs on the boot. Needs to lower his eyes a bit more, but I don't think it's going to have any trouble keeping him in the side at the moment. Like he's going to get a good run home, I think, and show us what he can really do. So he's actually into keeper contention for me with my best 16 players, just because given how young he is, there's a chance of trade as well. So there's a bit going on there.
Maybe the pair.
Maybe Adelaide. Who knows? But the reporter got enough wingers. I wanted to go to the Crows because
Mate, the neighbourhood dogs are going absolutely bonkers
if it's
tonight.
one of mine, I might just go out in a second and
Is that yours?
I don't know.
Something's going absolutely bonkers outside.
I don't know. There was actually a possum in the backyard a few weeks ago, and he just barked all night. So
I saw a possum as I arrived.
Oh, really? That'd be
Up
it.
the tree.
Yeah, that's right. I'll go and shoo it away in a second.
Possum Dossie.
All right. What I'm up to? Sam Taylor. Onto some GWS players. 88 points. Such a good intercept marker. Took 10 marks in this game. Just too defensive, really, to be considered as a fantasy prospect, though. But good game here.
I've got a bit of a take.
Okay,
And I
what is
reckon
it?
that, we saw Leeka Lear come in and play his first game on the weekend for GWS. I know he didn't really get much of the footy, but I reckon if he kind of develops into a bit of a, like he was really good. He played, he's a kid and he played at Central Districts in the league last year as like a key intercept defender and stuff. I reckon if he comes in, he might be able to take some heat off Sam Taylor, and Taylor can actually be a bit more, like an attacking intercept, like pure intercept defender as opposed to that full lockdown role. So I reckon next year might be one to warm to Sam Taylor if Ali can kind of come on and, cement a spot in that GWS backline.
A guy that's already said he wants to be the best defender in the league as well. You like that sort of mentality?
Just some kind of third-party things. Some taggers is really what I talk about. So it's not actually about fantasy scoring. So there was 2 in this game. So Lockie Ash went to Warner and basically nullified him after a huge first quarter. Got Essendon next week, so I'm not sure who he goes to now. Does he go to Merritt and shut him down?
Merritt's coming off.
Come off 170.
Yeah. So does he go to Merritt and try to shut him down? Is he taggable? I don't know if that's the case there.
Well, I don't know if he was being serious or not, but Holmesy, number 2 finisher last year, not so good this year. He's talking about potentially trading Merritt following a 170. I don't know if he was trolling Dossie,
Well, just for
but
that
he's
tag.
seeing that tag coming straight for Merritt this week.
Yeah. Well,
He hasn't responded well to tags in the past.
That being, but I mean Warner, like how many tags has he had to cop so far in his
basically
career?
the first one. Yeah.
So it's always the first one's always, I reckon, the worst. Then you kind of get used to it.
Yeah. Then the other tag was Ryan Clark for Sydney. So he had a forward tag, basically sat on Himmelberg all day and shut him down. Look, if Aaron Hall's back next week, could go to him. But the thing is, like, Clark can do a midfield kind of tag as well. And Simpkins really battled with tags in the future. But again, it's North Melbourne, so why would you bother? I don't know. Just let him play.
Correct.
Anyway, let's get on
It's
to
horse. He'll definitely tag.
Yeah, I know. Loves it. Even if it's just like, practice for Clark, he'll do it kind of thing. So anyway, let's move on to St Kilda versus Hawthorn with Kaes.
Some big fantasy scores here, but it was a fairly average game, and the Saints were just absolutely cruising, and then they just took the foot off the pedal, and a Dylan Moore-inspired Hawthorn almost came back and snatched the game. But some exciting kind of scores, especially from some younger guys. Josh Ward had 107 points, 26 touches for the top-end draft pick. Been excellent since coming back into the side a month ago, averaging 95 in his last 4. I know a couple of weeks ago, obviously I wasn't on the show, but he pulled out a 120 or 130 or something like that.
Yeah.
So he is really, what I could just see, it's just he just knows how to find the footy. You're talking about footy smarts before. Like, he knows where to run, has that high IQ, spent a fair bit of time out on the wing, but did pop in for 6 CBAs. And I reckon, maybe a few coaches that took him early this year might have kind of been like, shit, he's like stuck in, hasn't really shown too much, been stuck in the VFL, and he's kind of come back this last month. And I reckon it's exciting times for Hawthorn fans next year. Like, they have got some young kids humming.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated because I just didn't quite, like I said, I've told you guys a few times, our league's quite shallow benches, and he was one that got dropped back to the wire. And he's obviously, like, his fantasy pedigree in the juniors was
elite.
that elite. Just didn't quite have the waiver priority to grab him.
Bugger. Big boy McAvoy had 98 points, and look, he had a crack, but he was up against a Rowan Marshall clinic. 26 hit-outs, a goal and 14 touches, which is no bad game, but Rowan Marshall was on another level on the weekend. Now, interestingly enough, there was no game on the weekend for Box Hill, so kind of unsure where Big Maxi Lynch is at. But I suppose the big question is, someone like Big Boy, is he going to go on again, do you reckon? Like, he's been more than handy, coming back from injury as a ruck forward, but, is he going to hang around, or do you have to kind of invest in a Reeves or a Lynch?
I think he does go again, but long term you're investing in Reeves, obviously. But Reeves only missed with foot soreness as well, so he might be straight back in this week as well.
So get a bit tougher. Foot soreness.
Well, I think he had a shoulder injury earlier in the year. I don't think it's related to that or anything like that. But yeah, it's apparently just a bit of soreness, and he hopefully will come back in because I hope he does, because I'm rucking maybe or Chol on the weekend if that's the case.
That would be sick.
Maybe I'll kick 5 for me on the weekend. No, it's pretty good. Who have Gold Coast got this week? I think it's Hawthorn actually, so it might go right again.
Could be anything.
Yeah, who knows?
Finn McGuinness had 97 points, had the tagging role, spent most of his first half on Jack Sinclair, then spent a little bit of time on Jack Steele in the second half. He had plenty of CBAs, but for me, he's a bit of a nothing player. He's definitely getting some of that midfield time now, but there's no Warple, there's no Wingard. But then we're talking about guys like Ward, McDonald, Newcomb coming in, Newcomb hardly spending time in the CBA. So, a good score, yes, but I reckon he's that tagger only, and that's all he's kind of got. Plus, you've got Connor Nash too, who can also play a similar role. So I reckon if they ever get to that point where they're up and humming, I don't think McGuinness is really a long-term play.
Whilst I agree with the long-term play, listed as a forward this year, if he's going in the midfield and, getting led to the ball, could he put up some handy scores as a forward?
For the next 3 games?
Yeah, in your finals. Because he's someone I've got on my bench. And because he plays early Saturday, he's like a loophole option for me.
Like if they are playing Gold Coast this week, could he go to Anderson or Took?
Yeah, something like that.
I think Took's the most untaggable, but
but he has been tagged in the past. Like Caldwell did a job on him.
That's true.
Yeah.
Potentially, there's that chance. Maybe they need Nash to go with Took, who's a bit bigger. I'm not sure, but he could go with Anderson or something like that.
Yeah.
Long term, yes, if you're not keen, but while he's got that spot, definitely next 3 games.
It's one thing I'm thinking of. Yeah.
So what was the thinking behind? Why did Newcomb get taken out? Like, it was just a straight swap for McGuinness.
I think Newcomb only had 6 CBAs, so they wanted kind of McGuinness to get in there and get some CBAs, I suppose. Like he wasn't.
You think they'll just try a few things in the last couple of games?
The commentary did say something about him copping a bit of attention as well, but I don't think it wasn't from McGuinness though. But I can't remember who it was from specifically. But yeah, I don't know. The commentators were saying they moved him forward because he wasn't winning in the midfield or something like that. So. And
these last few weeks are all about the trade value for Titch and Jaeger, or
Jaeger did some good stuff actually.
Kaes, this is what I noticed last week with Titch. Like, we've been talking about how his CBA has been down, but he was starting on the wing and running in just straight into another midfield, and he actually scored well last week. Did that continue this week?
He's tonned up.
Yeah. So was he on the wing though again?
Yeah, it doesn't actually matter. Yeah. He just. That's the thing. You were asking because Sinclair didn't really have a CBA, but McGuinness started in and just went out. So it's just they're just trialing things. Sam Etch was playing games.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
Speaking of games, Jack Scrimshaw, he had 69 and went up forward. So Mitchie Lewis went off injured. They threw Big Scrim up forward and kicked 2 snags.
Oh yeah, I did notice this.
Interesting move, and look, he showed some tricks. Took a couple of good marks, one kind of going back to the goal line and stuff like that. So I know Lewis is out. I think Kaczynski's injured, so he might be starting up forward this week, which is
not good.
Yeah, not good
at all.
I think I'm gonna have to play him this week as well, unless
That's
Ellis
shocking.
comes back in.
So
that's bad news.
So see what happens with the team lineups this week, and if Lewis is out, I reckon they'll go with Scrimshaw again because he
was fine
from a football point of view. Was good.
Yeah.
Mason Wood for the Saners had 95. Really made the wing his own this season. Was a really good runner. Started to find a bit of the footy as well. He's 28. He's got the centre forward status this year. I think next year's going to be the interesting one where you'd have to assume he just goes to mid only. So
yeah,
he's been pretty good on the waiver wires this year, which has helped out a few teams. But I reckon probably hard to hold if he's mid only next year.
The thing is, he's gone in peaks and troughs. He'll have 2 or 3 weeks where he's been awesome.
Like every win.
Yeah.
I denied picking him up the last because I've had the Saints a couple of weeks, I think, and I just kept denying it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, nah, don't worry about it. He'll just go down, and he's had 3 in a row now where it's been
2G 4 piece.
Yeah, just
He's
about.
lucky, 18 touches, but like 7 tackles, which is good for a guy of his size. He's a bigger dude. So, Dan Hannonbury had 91 points, solid return from him. 27 touches, kicked a nice goal in the first. That was all off 63% TOG too. So, definitely has not
Dan
forgot
Ham.
how to find the footy.
What a good story too.
Yeah, good to see him back.
Good to
Persistence.
see. Yeah, far out.
Persistence.
And to play that well. Like,
Yeah, 59% owned, so definitely available in some shallower leagues as well. You'd have to assume he'd hold his spot. I suppose it depends what happens with Zach Jones. I think Billings and Gresham are a bit further away. So
Gresham's out for the season.
okay, so Dan Hand, probably should be around the mark. So keep him on your radar for sure. Good to see him. Hopefully he gets through the rest of the season and can kind of push towards a better 2023.
So imagine picking him up off the waivers now and he scores a couple hundreds for you.
Literally could happen.
Yeah.
So he was playing wing, wasn't he? Because didn't go inside.
No,
It looks-
just floating
just
around
outside. Yeah.
And, as I said, just the outside run. Looked like he hadn't really missed a beat. Benny Patton had 87 points. He was allowed to play a bit more attacking on the weekend. Picked up 25 touches, and we all know I love Ben Patton, but only his second score of an 80 plus this year. So I think it's just that lockdown role is his longer term. So don't get too excited about that number. And just a couple of guys I like the look of eye test wise: Mitch Owens and Sam Butler. Owens a bit more, but just enjoyed the way they go about it. Real eye test pleasers, I would say, especially Mitch Owens. Got a good size about him.
What did
finds a goal.
Butler score?
Like 50 or 60 or something like that.
Yeah, I've watched him pretty closely because I picked him up in Classic just because he had a good buy, and seems to be like the kind of couple kicks, couple goals type of.
He's like
small
his
forward.
brother. He's literally, Dan Butler. But like, you never know with a kid like that. Like, could he pop a bit
true.
more? That's the
I
thing.
don't know. Yeah. Anyways, that's it for that game, and we'll move on to Geelong versus Western Bulldogs. So,
Might
Kaes,
double
on
up.
you again.
Yes. Now, I thought we were going to be in for a real Saturday night special until the Cats kicked 8-0 in the third quarter. So, real shades of the grand final for the Bulldogs. They're good at having shit-house third quarters in big games. Not a hell of a lot to talk about because a lot of these guys are 2G for P, but Ed Richards, he'll be 2G for P next week, which is quite exciting. 108 points from him.
You've jinxed him now.
28 touches. Complete running halfback game. He was one of the guys who just kept taking the game on all night from the Dogs' perspective. He showed some glimpses in the preseason. Really glad he's kind of finally hit his straps come now. He's gone back-to-back hundreds, and he's that one game away from being 2G4P. Like Taylor Dre stuck in the twos. We've seen Daniel's kind of influence diminish a bit. Bailey Dale's not even going as well as he did. They want the ball in Ed Richards' hands. He's got that speed to burst and just kind of doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to get the ball moving.
Yeah, I was a bit skeptical last week because I was like, Caleb Daniel's going to come back in and that's going to find it harder for him. Still did it. If Treloar comes back in, does Treloar go back to the halfback flank or does he go elsewhere? Because now they've got enough people back there, or does he?
I think he's going to go elsewhere.
Yeah,
Ed Richards has been a winner for
There's
him.
no
I think
putting Treloar on
Treloar's
halfback
just
flank.
plugging a hole.
Yeah,
I
that's what
think.
it felt like.
Yeah. I feel like he's much better in the guts.
Yep. All right, Ed Richards, real deal. Let's do it.
Big time. Cody Waitman, 87 points from him. He kicked 3. Can't really have him though, so just tip of the cap game for me.
Agree.
Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Now, my kind of first good look at him. I haven't really watched a hell of a lot of dog stuff lately, but 63 points from him. Just started to show some glimpses. Now, I don't know if he's worth drafting like Dossie did last year, but
First round.
Yeah,
first
first
You must have not watched footy when you were away though, mate. The big breakout was
6 goals.
Was it last
last
week?
week. Yeah, I didn't actually watch any football the week before, so I've come into this week very, fresh and rejuvenated. But look, I just kind of like the way, we've seen a bit where he's looked timid, he's looked unsure, but on the weekend he kind of looked like he knew what he was doing, and especially against the Cats, I think that's a big feather in his cap. So
Yep.
I'm interested next year. Just interested in a little play.
Yeah, he looks, because he's not that typical big bulking.
No.
key
No, he's a
forward.
hybrid kind of. He's got good moves. If
Yeah.
he can just,
get
find
up
a
the
bit more
ground.
confidence,
Yeah.
I reckon. Third year, probably more fourth year would be his year. But
I can't remember where
I'm
I saw it,
interested.
but there was a Buddy comparison, basically the same amount of games to kind of have a big game like that. Look at a player like Buddy, spent a bit of time of his career in the midfield and things like that. So who knows? Sky's the limit with Ugle-Hagan.
That's right.
I'm excited. Brad Close, 97 points. I'm a huge fan of this guy. 1 goal, 3. So really could have been anything, hitting the scoreboard 4 times. Look, what I like about him is he gets up the ground, lays tackles, had 7 on Saturday. He's averaging 69 this season, but he's actually going a great clip, 83 in his last 5 games. And I'm loving this late season form, and I think he's someone I'd like to draft next year. this is the kind of time when you're looking towards some trends into next year, like who's starting to put their hand up, play really well, play good, consistent footy. The Cats aren't going to get any weaker, in the next coming years. They've got a pretty solid outfit who are, premiership windows well and truly open. Brad Close is playing a great role in that side. Not as close to home as someone like a Stengel, but I like that because he can play that semi-connector role. Good overhead. He's a bit of a smoky for me next year as not necessarily like a big breakout player, but like a really serviceable.
I like him. Yeah,
75, 80. I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah,
we all like him. Yeah, just
talked about him last week.
Yeah, I wonder if he tends to have these patches though, and then it sort of just becomes. It's almost like your typical keeper player, where it's like you have him for a month, and then you drop him back to the wire, and then you have him again.
So 83 in his last 5. That's consistent footy.
I'm happy with that. The
Zote had 70 points. Dossie. Just showed who was boss down back. Look, had a lot better game than he's had recently. I know his scores have been a bit stinky lately, but looked to have a bit more license, which was interesting to see, even with Tom Stewart back in that side. So interesting to monitor the situation.
Well, I remember his scores being better with Stewart in the side before, all this sort of stuff. I remember looking at the stats and I'm like, expecting it to be a massive differential when Stewart went down. I'm like, we got to pick up the Zote. And he actually averaged worse without him. So, over the journey.
So, hopefully, with Stewie back in the side, the Zote can go up and up and up. That's the right noise.
That said, there was a couple of games where he went absolutely bananas with Stewart out of the side.
Yeah, I think it was just the one.
Was it just one? Was it? Yeah. Anyway.
They're like Batman and Robin. But the Zote's Batman. Johnny Segler had 44 points in a bit of a disappointing return, I suppose, especially early on. But look, this is his first AFL game of the year, I think. So he's missed a lot of good level footy. 65% TOG, so obviously some time to build into there. 61% owned, so still a chance you could get him if you do need him back in the finals. Had 18 hit-outs and 11 touches. I know Reece Stanley's, I think, gone for the next month. So it's Segler season. Obviously we know Blitzarves can come in and ruck if needed, but I think they'll definitely stick with Segler. So he'll only get better from here on in.
Yeah,
could be a nice little pod in your teams.
Giving him definitely another week to have a look at him. That's for sure. I'm not worrying about this too much. I actually fielded him this week.
Yeah, I fielded him this week to another leg. Yeah,
44. I sent that
I
league.
thought I was a genius doing it too. I was like, Stanley's out. He's going to get the ruck time. And then it was like...
It was either him or Pitnet. And for me, because I had Ryder as my number one ruck most of the year. And scored a 44, what it was at. And I still posted the highest score of the season in that league. So
if you're a rebuilding team this week, is it time? You mentioned the Ugle Hagen finally having his sort of breakout moment. Obviously not still there fantasy-wise. Is it time to pick up the other top dog coming through the VFL after a huge outing on the weekend, Sammy Darcy?
100 points from him.
20 disposals, 14 marks.
And not one single hit out or one goal.
Yeah, he was playing defence.
Yeah.
So intercepting.
Well, they need some defenders down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do actually.
He might actually come in and be a really good option.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Dossie, you went to the Crows versus Carlton game.
I did.
How many beers?
Couple, mate. And a couple.
I was asking for some notes for the Wave Wire podcast, and you're like, dude, I was at the game, man. I can't remember anything.
I've pretty much put the notes in as I wrote them down. So I have my little note. I brought my notes up every once in a while, so I'll try and sort of read them out as they come up.
I just want you to have a good time at the footy. That's all,
it was a night. It was a good day. It was a good night. Yes. But it was good to see them live, and I nearly busted out the Carlton Guernsey, but I didn't. I wasn't that much of a.
If Paddy Dow was playing, would have you?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah. Or the
Could've
trudge.
given him my Ben Keys badge.
Ben Keys badge.
Yeah, I got a Ben Keys badge.
You could have worn that.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, you might need to be putting that in the recycling soon with his new roll up forward. 0 centre bounce attendances on the weekend, playing a bit of a forward
Tell
role.
someone who's worried. I'm not.
Played it really well too.
Yeah.
So.
He's going to get 3 Brownlow votes, mate.
Was that trying to negate a bit of the woof? Is that what was happening?
It was.
Yeah, okay.
It was.
Oh, by the way, just a side note, the woof was loud and clear at Adelaide Oval.
I heard on the broadcast.
Yeah, it's huge. There's a lot of Carlton fans in Adelaide, actually.
A lot of just Melbourne support team fans in Adelaide.
But I was getting involved. I was woofing. I was woofing. Anyway, Saligo was the first one that I noticed just on the eye test at the Oval. I was like, somebody's
He's a
playing
nice
inside.
size.
So at the time, I wasn't keyed in enough to notice Ben Keys was the one missing out, but I did immediately say, here's Saligo starting in the guts. I've written here in my notes, it says Saligoat. Question mark.
Jesus.
Why do you keep ruining people's careers?
Yeah, that's he's gone now.
Nah, he looked pretty good. It's funny though, they've changed their inside mix and immediately get a big fat dubs over Carlton. So
Yeah.
something that they'll persist with for the last few games, you'd suggest. They also threw in a favourite of the show, Harry Schonberg, continued to
Using
get
the
a
word
few more
favourite very loosely.
bounces. 64 points for him, 17 disposals, 7 tackles. Good to see he's laying a few hugs in low time on ground as
What did
usual.
he score?
Yeah, I said in low time on ground, 64 points.
Thank you.
All right.
He's building.
He's going to get the role though. They've already pretty much they're going to basically play Matt Crouch in the sample for the rest of the year by the sounds of things, and just roll with the kids.
Is Kaes genuinely going to be a forward for the rest of the year?
No.
You reckon he'll? Yeah, that was a
That
roll.
was just a once-off roll.
I don't know.
They were talking about it. They wanted someone from this side. They shut him down. It was almost the Ryan Clark, but a fantasy-friendly Ryan Clark.
But he did it so well.
But you're not going to do that each week.
Well, they're playing West Coast this week, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just
They're
keep
going
the
to
kids
shut down Shannon Hearn, who's
No,
slower than a
No,
wet week.
I know what you mean.
More
Just
so
let
they
the
wouldn't
kids.
keep the kids.
Just let the kids
in
do
there and
their
leave them
thing.
to the same kind of role. Just
Yeah.
play a forward kick. Like, to kick
I think it'll
goals.
be part of the mix.
I
I think it'll be a bit more of a mix. Because
Yeah.
they really only had 4 guys that went into the centre bounces on the weekend.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like against West Coast, why wouldn't they just do the same?
Yeah, I just think they'd rotate around. I'd be shocked if Kaes doesn't have a CBA this week.
All right.
We'll see. Time will tell. Other players, but yeah. By the way, I mean, if those guys are available, especially if you're rebuilding, would you stash them away just because we know the
Saligo's
roles
the
are going to
man.
be there next year?
Saligo for sure,
Saligo
yeah.
especially. Josh Worrell, according to my friend Trav at the game, he was like he's been on Worrell for a while. Reckon he's a pretty good player. Did look pretty good down back for them. I don't know how he's going to go fantasy wise. He had a pretty light outing fantasy wise. I think. What did he
Didn't he
score?
have 70?
Oh, he actually scored all right.
Yeah, he's like a 70.
62. 62. But yeah, played all right. 17
What type of role was he
disposals.
playing?
Sort of that
Duga's
back line,
role.
that intercept. He didn't have many marks, though, only 3, but he was kind of just roaming that back line. So did some pretty impressive stuff. The other person who didn't really score that well, but the fog was pretty amazing.
Foggy has been, like, in real football sense.
Yeah.
He's been showing some pretty good signs this
He
season.
was.
doesn't miss.
Oh, yeah. And I'm just wondering when because Tex has signed a new deal, I think.
One
but
more year, yeah.
When he hangs them up after next year, I think not sky's the limit, but he's going to be one of
He's
those
the
key
man.
forwards that is going to be actually regularly
He
fieldable.
could kick 4 or 5 goals a week.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that's taken a long time to develop, but any key forward does, and he's starting to show. The hanger he took was right in front of me. The hanger was special. On the other Adelaide side as well, I've sort of mixed all these notes. There's Adelaide and Carlton. I'm trying to read them as we go, but Wayne Miller is still playing a forward role, but looked way better. So I don't know if you guys have seen any of the footage, but
Yeah, sorry, the key
Miller
goals.
was like impacting the game in this one, which you couldn't have said he's done too much of this year. So he really turned the corner. We all started him in Classic, I think, to start the year, and then it was an absolute letdown. But 73 points, pretty impressive performance, I'll say. But unverified sources at the match reckons he's off to Geelong next year. So unverified.
Unverified.
On the Carlton side of things, Mitch McGovern scoring 89 points in an intercepting role, 11 marks. He was pretty impressive to start the season, so, probably jump on him for the run home. They've got 3 pretty tough matchups too in terms of coming home, Carlton. So there might be in the back line a fair bit for McGovern to do a bit of mopping up, especially with Nick Newman going down. So I think I don't know what his situation is. He got a gash or something. Obviously, I didn't see it being at the
Sliced his knee
ground,
open.
but
it was a
depending on how long he's out for, McGovern will probably benefit a bit with him being out. Also, Matt Kennedy was injured late in the 4th quarter. I think I've seen that's concussion, so I saw him going off the ground. But
I know where this is going.
Paddy down.
Trudge
Yeah,
season.
there we go.
Right
There
in
it is.
time. Right in time for finals. You're going to be able to field that
He
Paddy
didn't
Dow
fit.
juice.
He didn't play VFL on the weekend.
Paddy Dow did.
No.
The Trudge didn't.
Paddy Dow, he wasn't in
Paddy Dow
good
played.
scores.
Yeah, he scored big
Lucky
22
Fogarty had
disposals.
120. So
Just on the finals thing, Carlton basically have to win one of their last 3 in their versus
And they're all
against
tough.
3 very good opponents. Could we see Zach Fisher have some more CBAs with Matt Kennedy out?
You could. You might, but he's too G for P, man. I'm not talking about him.
No, I'm just caring about my own team at the moment. That's all. But Fisher's not 2G for
You know, he's literally wedged every player he's got and spoken about him.
pretty much
tonight.
have, yeah.
I know.
Fisher's not 2G for P though, by the way.
No, I think they'll.
close.
I think they will. I mean, they had 3 injuries in this game, so
Yeah.
I think they'll have to bring in Paddy Dow, and you'll be able to field him for your finals. Now, moving on to the final player here, I wrote down Chase Jones good, question mark, because we were like, far out, Chase Jones has had heaps of the pill, and then somebody checked the AFL app and he was going at 40% efficiency.
Yeah, that sounds like Chase Jones.
Yeah.
Anyways, you're back-to-back here, Dossie, so you woke up Sunday morning. How was the head Sunday morning anyway to watch your Weagles put up a good performance?
How have you written this much in a hungover state?
No, I did pretty well.
Than
I was enjoying it. It was late enough in the day that I managed to get through.
Geez, there's like 3 pages here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair bit.
Sure, they were
one
all real
final
fantasy
note on
relevant.
Adelaide Oval. Bar service was shocking. I missed a quarter of footy because I was going to get a beer.
I think just in general,
No good.
it's hard to find people to work at the moment, I think, with COVID and stuff like that. And
Okay.
people have moved on to other jobs and things like that. So,
Did you see there was
Yeah, it was. They looked very understaffed.
Yeah.
So there's like obviously I think the food and obviously he's struggling. This guy bought in Melbourne like a thermos full of hot dogs, and he pulled out a hot dog and sliced open a bun and made his own hot dog in his seat.
That's elite.
That's so good.
fuck yeah. I've seen that before. I think like in American sports, I think I've seen that before. Yeah. Love it.
All right, Gold Coast versus West Coast. The mighty Weagles nearly got over the line with a massive comeback in the last quarter, but they did the right thing by me, the mighty Weagles, and we're still going for the spoon, thankfully.
You're not going to get it.
But little did they know Stewie G was on the opposition side and did his absolute best to get the L. I got a message from Checkers during this game. Gaff! Exclamation mark. I think he might have thought that he'd actually won the Jack
trade.
Sinclair for Andrew Gaff trade that he made earlier in this year, because Gaff in his 250th, I think, played a pretty good game, but he's 2G for P. Well, is he?
Yeah, he's yeah, it was average rated last year.
I just noted early that Noah Anderson started on a wing with Isaac Rankin starting as an inside mid, and I was like, oh, is this something I'm going to see? But no, he had 2 centre bounces for the game. I think he might just start the first centre bounce and the second half first centre bounce sort of thing, just to get him in the game.
Yeah.
One player that you'd be very excited about, Kaes, Jeremy Sharp.
Yes.
I just about wrote him off last week for the listeners. I think I was
that's
pretty
fair enough.
I was dismissive. I said it
fair
looked
enough.
like Stewie G looked like he was done with him. He gave him, I think, very low time on ground last week. It looked like they'd prefer Elijah Hollins over him, and then they started playing Lukosius on the wing late in the quarter, and I was like, oh, that's good night for Jeremy Sharp. Came out in this game with a bit of a point to prove. Yes, it was against West Coast, but hey, they only won by 3 points. 19 touches, 2 snags. The thing about him, he was really pushing hard back in defence, which is what you want to see from a wingman. But in this team that is super non-fantasy relevant, apart from the Took Miller, for him to score an 83 points and, I just think he led metres gained, 607 metres gained. Like, he hopefully has some job security for the rest of the season.
He might be playing this week for me in a final. Second game of the round, so I can loop him. So he might be a nice little loophole option.
Against the Hawks, good team to play it against, I think.
Good for midfielders.
I was just looking at the Lukosius merry-go-round again. I was keeping a track on his position. It was funny, the commentary was like, oh, here he is playing in defence as he has been since coming back. And I'm like, hang on, that's not accurate. He's been all over the shop. And in this game, it was no different. 52 points from 13 touches and 2 behinds. He's still such a buy low target for me. I know your trade period's probably completely done and dusted, but if anyone decides to put him back to the pool this year, I'm very happy to draft him again.
I am too.
He started defence, then moved immediately to the forward line in the same quarter. Then he moved back to defence, back forward. Then he went into the wing in the last quarter. I don't think he spent much time on the wing until that last quarter. So his role is just all over the shop at the moment.
What position does he get next season to start the year?
I think with Ben King back in the side, I think they
in fantasy. What does AFL fantasy give him at the start of the year?
I don't know. Forward defender maybe?
Yeah.
That's
Could be.
probably.
I love that position.
I'd probably give him forward defender because the wing, he hasn't played enough
yeah.
wing, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
They've been playing Sharp on the wing. They've been playing. We've just said Hollins has come in the side. Ellis has been predominantly on there. I think Weller was playing a bit there on the wing. So
yeah.
Anyway, Rory Atkins. We mentioned him last week playing a defensive role and a halfback. Same role, just not as good a score. But against West Coast do not tend to, because you got it in your forward line quite a bit, it's not always a fantasy-friendly role to come up against West Coast in defence. I actually think Rory Atkins isn't too bad to play. The only problem is he's still just got that midfield status. So he's only an option, I think, in your super deeper leagues. And if you need a loophole, I think this week he actually could score right if he's selected against the Hawks. So on UTAS Stadium could use that with. Debutant alert for Gold Coast. Mac Andrew, only the 32 points. Looked all right, though, not going to lie. Kind of
test?
just kind of that eye test pass for me. Huge unit, over 200 centimetres. But funnily enough, when he first comes on, they pan to him. Who's he standing on? A big giant for West Coast? Was he on one of our big boys? You know, maybe a Waterman up there or, I don't know, like a Bailey Williams. No, he's on Willie Rioli. So plays, obviously just rate him enough that he can take on a task like that, sort of plays that small role. Obviously, he doesn't have much meat on the bone at the moment, but he's another guy. Reminds me of, you know how when Nick Cox come in, we're like, what could this guy be? He's playing on a wing. He's massive. He's kind of got a few tricks. Mac Andrew's very much the same. I don't think any of us thought Nick Cox, obviously he had a couple of really nice big scores early days. I don't see that from Mac Andrew, but I see him being a long-term, really nice sort of dynasty prospect, but it's going to take a few years. Elijah Hollands backed up his first performance with a 49. You know, he's going to also just take some time, but keep him in the back pocket. You'll probably be able to draft him again next year. I'd keep him in your deep leagues, but nothing else. I wouldn't be keeping him otherwise. Jack Darling's back into some form. 110 points is the sole focus of that forward line. Nothing else really to say. I think does he take up a step up with Kennedy sort of on his way out?
Darling's quite old himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he's late 20s though. He's still got a couple of years.
I don't know. I don't love key forwards, so you're asking the wrong person. I won't go near him ever.
The only couple of more names I've got here, sorry, there's a few, but Jermaine Jones, 78 points. His role in defence has been really good to watch, and I think he provides something different for the Eagles, so I'm interested where that goes for going forward. Jai Cully, 36 points, only 50% time on ground, so don't worry about the score in this game. He also got suspended. What did he get? Did you guys see that? It was a pretty...
2 rounds.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So he's done for the year now. But he also pulled a hamstring, so that's why he came off in the last quarter, did a bit of a string. He's still an amazing prospect for next year. So keep him. I think he's going to be mid-only next year if that's enough games that he played. But yeah, Jack Cully's right up there.
He'll definitely be mid-only. Yeah.
Luke Foley was the last one. 83 points. Moved back into defence with Witherden out of the side. And he's been playing forward lately, which has been terrible. So, you know, good to see that he can still score when he's in the right role.
Dossie, I do like this. I do like the Luke Foley one because he's one of my boys. I really went hard at him early in the season. It's kind of good to see him actually get his role back, play properly. We actually had a complaint a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
From one of a friend of ours who wants to hear about Liam Duggan more often. Not a 2G4 player. Reckons you do the West Coast games and you never bring him up.
Yeah, well, I thought he was 2G.
No, because I think he only averaged like 70-something last year and he doesn't actually get up. So Liam Duggan, going forward...
You don't like Liam Duggan.
Yeah. You like bringing up Willie Rioli, who scores 52 and, you know...
Well, it's because he had... I saw he had a massive set bounce. I should have said something as well on... bloody Tommy Barras the last 3 weeks. I think he's averaging 100 and something.
10 marks, 10 marks.
The mark dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Kaes was all over that. But
You laughed at me.
No, the whole defensive line is actually just very much sharing it around. Something I've noticed with Tommy Barras, he bloody loves it. He loves that chip mark action a bit now. He's sort of got a taste and he's getting much more involved in it.
That's the thing with a lot of those key defenders. They take 10 marks, they also get 10 kicks on the back of those.
And I feel like his success is also linked with Duggan because it seems like they've got a little chip mark going between the two. So... Yeah, no, okay. So you want me to talk about Duggan? He's coming. Just your
prospects going forward. Can you see could he be one that kind of really steps up in the next year if Hearn goes away and all that sort of stuff?
He's been impressive the last couple of weeks.
I don't even know what he's because sometimes he's in the midfield a little bit as well.
I've always just thought he's a guy like, for instance, Witherden was missing in this game. If Witherden's still
going to be missing for the rest of his career,
shut up, he's still playing. If Witherden's still in the team, he's a guy that loves the cheap stuff more than Duggan. Like it's all about that observable thirst, and Duggan's less on the thirstometer. He's more of the hard nut.
Thirstometer.
He's more of the hard nut.
He's a good team footballer.
Yeah, he's a team footballer.
Whereas Witherden isn't, which is why he doesn't play.
He likes getting peeled though.
All right. Now, Dossie, I know you've got a rant here about Fiorini and Stewie G, but I feel like we have the same conversation each week. So do you mind if we move on to the next game?
He had 35 in the VFL though, just quietly.
Okay, good.
Stewie, Come on.
It wouldn't be an episode without Dusty
It's
Ring
like-
fair any.
Please leave clubs. Please.
Anyways, let's move on to Richmond versus Brisbane. So I'll try to get through this one pretty quick. Trent
Please.
Cotchin had 102 points, just a tip of the gap. Tough inside game. That's the type of game he kind of plays well in. If he can get there, had 8 tackles and that boosted his scoring. So yeah, well, tip of the cap with Trent Cotchin. I'm not picking him up anymore. Tom Lynch had 91 points, but 4 goals to get there, including the winner. So again, probably another tip of the cap, but he's actually a good, pretty like streaming option if you can get a good matchup because he does kick goals when he's on top of his game. Toby Nankervis had 86 points, scored better as number 1 ruck. Obviously, was Soldo out, so he's probably one you can consider over the next few weeks. So I think he's got a tough matchup this week. Can't remember who they're actually playing though, but I think looking at the chart before, I could be wrong. I can't remember. Anyway, move on. Noah Cumberland, kind of similar to Tom Lynch, kicked 5 goals and only had 68 points. So he scored really well over his first 4 games of this season.
He's got Port, mate.
He does. Yeah, well, there you go. Oh, that shouldn't be a tough ruck matchup, though. Just a tough fantasy matchup. Noah Cumberland, so he's one that he's scoring well, but I don't think he's going to be kicking 3, 4, 5 goals a game for his entire career. So not really one I'm condoning in fantasy too much, even though he's put up some impressive scores to start off with. Once I see some other avenues to scoring, I might change my mind. But yeah, at the moment, I'm only seeing goals. Tyler Sonsi, Kaes, you're a big fan of the old Tyler Sonsi. So he had 75 points and had 5 CBAs for the game as well. Got quite a lot of his touches across half back, but quite often, there was quick kicks out of the middle and stuff. I saw him starting up forward as well. So I know he might have just been working up the ground to get those touches. I'm not really sure, but showed some promise from the fantasy perspective anyway. And he was a good underage scorer. He played one VFL game as a junior and scored 100, right?
Or
99.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I think it was pretty high. So big fan of his game this week. He looked a lot better this week. Looked more at home, and I guess another one. I'm not sure if we 2G4P'd him. I think we did, but
should be.
Kadeem Coleman, 95 points, but he had a massive first half.
2G.
Yeah, we're just 2G now, but 70 at half time.
He's actually a fucking good player too.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
The issue is 70 at half time, so only scored 25 for the rest of the game. Cramped late and just went missing. Yep. So had the hamstring awareness last week, missed the game. So just a bit.
I think
worrying.
he cramped multiple times because I kept checking. Yeah. I was checking for Zorko's scores actually.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing injured next to his name, and it just kept popping up and on and off next to his name, Kadeem Coleman, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's a bit concerning just with the body. Hopefully, it holds up.
He did miss that whole chunk of the footy at the start of the year. It was going to be the next big thing. Then he missed. So maybe it's just he's just getting to the end of his first season where he's actually playing. And some of his bigger games, actually, now you think of it, have been without Rich in the side as well, because Rich was out again. But I've still got faith in him. It's just I don't have no issues playing both of them.
Yeah,
in the same side.
Kind of tip of the caps, but also these players could be handy in finals. So Charlie Cameron can just kick bags. He only kicked 2 goals this week and scored 74. So he could be a handy finals contributor who's generally on waiver wire lists. Eric Hipwood kicked 4 goals and had 76 points. And Dan McStay didn't actually kick a goal, still had 72 points, but he had 8 marks to get there. So he was good up the ground a bit more and taking a few grabs there. So yeah, just a few ones to consider if they're around. Last game of the round. Let's get on to Essendon versus North Melbourne. I know you loved watching North play, so is it just nice to watch your team get a good win?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, North.
No.
North should be made to sit out the rest of the year for bringing the game into disrepute. They are just absolutely trash. Who would actually get a game for another club at North? I reckon I've got Mackay, LDU, Simpkin, Horn Francis, maybe Larkey. Everyone else.
Stevenson.
We'll talk about him. 112 points, and it was probably one of the most lackluster, nothing 34 disposal games I've ever seen in my life.
Come on.
He played the most unaccountable, undefending Aaron Hall type role, which is just a blight on the game itself. Took 7 kick-ins, and yes, it's great for fantasy, of course, but usually clubs play, a kid who needs a bit of confidence off a half back to get him into the game, not big money recruits. So
he's only 23.
Make me sick, man.
What's wrong with that?
The role is just
you'd rather Aaron Hall, 31-year-old, play there or something.
Well, he can do it, but it's not doing anything for Jaidyn Stephenson's career.
Why not? He can be a half-backman. Racking up.
He's better than that.
Plenty of guys start their career at 23 and a half-back and continue for the rest of their career.
But he's not. He's better than that, is my point.
He's a pretty good ball user.
They just given up? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think he's actually found his proper position before. Where would you play him?
I'd literally just say play in the midfield and try and do something. He's Like, remember when he
He's-
burst onto the scene at Collingwood?
He's too
like he was
small and skinny to be a
but he
good
can kick
midfielder. I know
goals.
he
He's got
is.
Yeah,
great.
but
Like
the other thing is
sense.
though, he can't kick goals in this shit team because they're never getting it forward in an easy way.
That's fair, but like it just feels that it's just they're giving up. North are giving up playing him back there. That's what I mean. Like they want to be they want to improve, but they're just like, here's potentially our most skillful player. We're just going to play him up halfback because he can't really play anywhere else because we can't get it to him. Like I don't like that.
I think it's
That's
just
my
because
point.
I think it's because the midfield guys that they have to keep playing there, like your Jed Andersons and stuff like that. They're playing there because they're better than the kids that they've got, and they don't necessarily want to expose the kids to getting slaughtered just yet. Whereas like they can't really move those guys around. It's like only positions they can play.
I don't know. I feel he's wasted back there, and it just doesn't look like he wants to be there either. So I don't know. That's just the vibe. Cam Zerha was pretty good. He had 88 points. Probably this Roo second best behind Jai Simpkin on the day. I liked he just had a crack. I really respect that. 18 touches and 4 goals. He's one I actually could feel like if he was at a good team, he might actually be a pretty good player because he's a good size, got some good skills, got some good grunt. Just he might be one who, he's 24 now, I think. So building the back end of this year, averaging 79 in his last 4 games. So might be one to start looking at next year in terms of just, the guy who's trending the right way, even in a shit team. Look, apart from that, North are bad. Like Zeeble is just really slow. Got the turning circle of a road train. Callum Coleman-Jones, I think he's lost there. Bailey Scott looked lost again. Like Tom Powell, I don't know. It's just, they're a tough team to watch and get excited about.
We flagged this on the pod last week, but over the last 3 weeks, Essendon, one of the toughest teams for anyone to score against. So, it's North Melbourne, I get it, and I'm not expecting big things, but this was going to be exceptionally bad this week, I think.
Okay, it was.
Yeah.
And also Tom Powell, 69, 20
he
disposals.
He got all of them in the last
Okay.
quarter. He was on 20 at halftime or something like that. He built late, so it's just sad times because there's some good players in there. I just want them to see them get better. But anyway, on to the good guys. And taking something from that, I reckon if you're playing in the finals and you got Swans guys this week, Crows guys next week, or Suns guys in the grand final, just stream against the Roos because they will give you some scores. Kyle Langford, 113, looking like he's nearing his best. He's never going to be a star, but definitely one who's a serviceable player. I reckon he's that. Locking in 90 most weeks, 21 touches, 2 goals, 10 marks. And the marks one was a massive one here. The Roos just let them do what they want. So the Dons averaged 99, and they took 136 on the weekend. So we saw guys like Durham, Heppel, Redmond, Hine, Kelly, all 9+ marks in the back line. They just chipped it around and controlled it. So, Laverde had 110, controlled the ball back there with his 12 marks, played well unlucky, but I suppose watching a bit of Essendon lately, they have got a bit of chip mark game back into their defence. So might be one to look at Laverde as a streamer, but definitely just a bump this week. Jakey Stringer hit back, had 109 points. Basically had the look of someone before the game like he was heading into an all-you-can-eat buffet because he knew he was just going to feast against the Roos, and that's what he did. 5 goals, 3, 8 shots on goal, 7 tackles. Had the pleasure of standing on Jaidyn Stephenson too. He would have been really upset at that prospect. But look,
CBAs?
a couple,
okay.
From
I was just thinking Shield out.
Shield out, McGrath out, Caldwell's tagged,
and then injured.
Parish
out. So
It's there could be a bit of a midfield role in here.
There could be.
Yeah. If I'm not
Parish
sure.
might be back very soon.
Parish is back. It's had 1 week on the injury list last week. So,
but the package looks fit and hungry. I reckon next year he's a genuine keeper.
13 CBAs for the package.
Well, then with Caldwell out, they could remain.
Yeah.
And then with Shields, I think he's going to miss a couple as well. So he might be a mainstay for the last few rounds. Could be a real finals winner for you.
He
Don't mind that.
He's really hitting form at the right time of year. So
Don't mind that at all.
would definitely be involved in that. Another one who I reckon is worth a play is Will Snelling. 79 points from him. A lot of people were jumping off him after a slow return after injury, but we're starting to see some glimpses of why he's really good. He's actually really crucial to the Dons lineup. He's that connector, plays that high half forward role beautifully. 94 points last week, 79 this week. He's only 54% owned, so definitely worth a look for this year and going into the future. And Jai Menzie came on as the sub for his debut. I hate that, but it happened nonetheless. Played really well, basically got a full quarter at the end of it, played 25% TOG. 38 points. I think he had 10 touches at 100% disposal efficiency. So he might be worth looking at for the next few weeks. I suppose Bombers are done for the season. For me, Perkins and Hobbs just looked a bit slow, like they need a rest. They've played a lot of footy in their second and first years respectively. So Maybe Menzies might be one for your inferior fantasy formats.
Don't mind it.
That's it.
So I'm just leaving a gap because we've already recorded the next bit. So yeah, those people who are watching on the stream, Timely Dossie was late, so we did the
Yes.
we did the questions and members read and stuff before the show started, and the outro. So yeah, if you want to hear the questions and stuff, just listen to the main pod. Apologies, I'm not going to do them live, but yeah, that's the end of the show. I'll just piece it together. Awkward ending. I'm sorry. You got something you want to say there, Dusty?
Bye.
All right. Catch you later. Dossie, can you hit the